Hello, everyone, and welcome to Shakti Maitri podcast, a place where we ignite the divine feminine with loving kindness. And today we have a special guest. We have, I don't know if I should call you Lord Shiva or like Yoni Lightworker. Now we have Kyle Lipton with us all the way from Cusco, Peru. And so Kyle is a comedian from LA. Is that where you're from?
Originally from LA, yep.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we'll be talking about all things trust, creativity, intuition, and like masculine, feminine energetics and polarity, and really just the spiritual world and the conscious community in general.
Let's do it.
All right. So the first question that I'd love to ask you is, what got you into the spiritual community? Because I love like how much light you bring into it, and it was such a big like heartening thing for me to see, like, okay, not only are there people out there who are in the spiritual community, but like we're really in it, like we're making fun of it and it makes sense, and like I can laugh with a group of people, so
Well, yeah. I first actually got into spirituality. Well, I'll piggyback a little bit before. I got into personal development when I was like 14. I was a basketball player and I really trained harder than anyone I ever knew. But when it came to displaying that in a game, I got really nervous. And that's kind of when I started researching like how to become more confident, how to, get more mentally tough. And, probably as a lot of people in the spiritual world or personal development world, you start somewhere and then you end up somewhere totally different. And then when I was about 16, I transferred to my third high school. I got a basketball scholarship. And the first game of the season, right before season was about to start, it's called the scrimmage, which is a game that doesn't count for anything. I broke my leg. So I missed the entire season at a school that I literally just got a basketball scholarship to. And I was so fucking devastated. And I was living at my grandma's house at the time because it was really easy to, be there with a broken leg. And I remember sitting on the bed and being like, let me do a quick internet search. And I remember Googling how to get girls. And that was my first ever introduction into this world where I see these videos of these guys and they're just like walking up to women on the street at the mall. And I was like, you could just do that. You could just start a conversation with a woman you're interested in. And fortunately, a lot of those guys who were teaching this stuff, they overlapped a lot of real deep spiritual concepts. So I started getting into like the power of now when I was about 16, meditation. And that's kind of how the journey started.
Yeah, so I hear that it was when you were in college.
No, it was in high school. I was 16.
In high school, and it started with like this self-development journey of confidence.
100%.
Yeah. And that's interesting because I feel like a lot of people that I talk to in the spiritual community, it either comes from like trauma or shame or guilt or like some part of like the circle that is us. Like if we think about ourselves as a circle and there's like a little hole in that circle that's missing, it almost sounds like we had to find a way to fill in that hole so that we could then expand our circle. And
Well said.
thank you. Yeah, and I hear you saying that like you saw mentors who didn't just talk about like personal development. They talked about like these, bigger conscious concepts. And so then like that circle kind of like expanded and expanded.
Right. I'm 16. So, I guess God has a good sense of humor because the carrot had to be dangled a little bit, been like, to get women, all of these things, as a 16-year-old, your hormones are raging. Mm-hmm. That's the entry point, but then it takes you so much deeper down the rabbit hole to the things that you really, really need, which is, confidence, which is presence, which is diving deeper into some of your shadows or some of the things that I think for me, the journey, if I could surmise it, I've just always, from that point on, I was like, I got to taste freedom on a new level. For example, 16-year-old Kyle was so excited to go walk up to women at the mall and start a conversation. But what that really did for me on a deeper level was it opened up possibilities that I didn't know that were already existing in my world. And I saw a quote the other day that I think really summarizes it. I'm going to butcher it, but it's something along the lines of, I was searching my whole life for a really interesting place to visit, but I forgot to see that the place that I was in was already interesting.
Mm.
And the amount of opportunity, the amount of expansion that's available in the present moment is everything. And we have to start there with acceptance and with seeing that where we are is perfect. And then from that circle, we can expand and expand and expand. But I think so many people, we try and jump ship and go do all the things without realizing where we are is perfect as a base and then moving from that place.
Yeah. And I love that it's not just like accepting of, oh, I see all my faults, like, I accept it. It's like, I see all my faults and I'm perfect and I accept that. And that kind of allows you to see the opportunities that are there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, even to get a little bit meticulous with language, sometimes we get so caught up with seeing our faults or getting so deep into shadow work or all of these things that we only focus on what's wrong. And on a deeper level, nothing is ever wrong.
Mhm.
And I think some people start a quest in the personal development world because they believe there's something wrong with them. So they try and do personal development to fix a problem that actually never existed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so just to beat a dead horse, not really, but going back to 16-year-old Kyle, like what were you able to see that was perfect?
I don't know if I would say, I don't know if I had that lens of this is perfect, but I think I saw opportunities that were present that I didn't know were possible before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, this is like 16, we can go a lot more mature than this, but 16-year-old is like, well, I just talked to a girl at the mall and now I'm on a date with her. Like, just to see that and
Mm-hmm.
see, and what that taught me, because I started a podcast when I was 18 and I lived in Los Angeles. So I'd see like celebrities and people out. And the thing that always fucking killed me was missed opportunity. Right. So it's like I see this person and I know I could start a magical fucking conversation, create a cool video. But if I let my fear get the best of me, I'm actually never going to be able to see the world that was already here and already available. And courage was kind of like the key to unlocking that world.
Yeah, courage.
Mm-hmm.
Courage to be vulnerable and take that risk.
Yeah. I think my desire to live with no regrets outweighed my desire to stay safe.
Hmm. Your desire to live with no regrets outweighed the desire to stay safe.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. And so I imagine that, you have to take a lot of risks in comedy and just acting in general. And
For
so
sure.
I'm curious, like, how does that show up for you now?
In what sense?
I guess I'm thinking about, so shifting it to like the context of comedy within the spiritual community. I'm
Yeah.
curious if you feel like, oh, am I going to say this and like step on someone's toes, or like, oh, is this disrespectful? Like, how does that show up for you to just like be your authentic, genuine self?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you can't do both, right? You can't be super preoccupied with wanting to preserve everyone's feelings and be in your greatest expression. I think that's the journey everyone gets to take.
Mhm.
It's, do I choose to sacrifice myself in an attempt to keep others safe, satisfied, content, whatever story we make up about it? Or do I want to just liberate myself and trust that in my liberation, it's going to liberate other people? And for me, and sure, there's definitely been moments and things where I'm like, ooh, that's a little edgy. I don't know if I want to say that. But there's also the part of me that's like, oh, but what would happen if I said that? And my intention is never to like hurt someone's feelings or be a dick or anything like that. And I've had so many people reach out to me and they're like, oh, I feel so called out by your videos, but I love them. And I think what comedy does is it's a really beautiful way to tell the truth in a way that bypasses a lot of people's normal defense to the truth.
Mm, yeah. Okay. So like within, like I'm thinking about your joke, like for $55 a pop, let's sit in my living room and drink hot chocolate, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, I hear like that calling out because like, you know, that's what we're doing. And like there's still all those other layers to it. And like I can laugh with it. And so yeah, like how did that kind of like journey shift for you? You entered the spiritual community and you like resonated with it and then you created comedy later? Or did it feel kind of comedic to you in the beginning?
I think for me, one of my geniuses is a really, really deep observation.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning I can be in an environment but still be out of the environment, kind of gauging and scanning and seeing like what's actually going on. But yeah, I was balls deep in the spiritual world for quite a long time. And I don't know how to say this. I'm still all about liberation and freedom and love and all of those things. And I'm really no fluff, right? So I like to cut through the bullshit and cut through the fluff. And at the same time, for example, to use your analogy where I made fun of cacao ceremonies, where it's, we're drinking chocolate for $55 a pop. I would still go to a cacao ceremony and I can still find it fucking hilarious that there's a bunch of people in someone's basement drinking chocolate and making sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like kind of like going back to what I was talking about in the beginning, like finding your page was just like such a welcoming arms because I think so many people didn't have any concept of like, oh, all my friends think I'm weird for like doing all these things and like I don't even want to listen to my intuition. Um, I know for me, like I went to a couple of spiritual festivals last year and I felt like very welcomed into the community, but then I like saw your videos and I was like, oh my God, we do go, oh, and we hold our hand, like our heart, and like we do all these things. And I mean, so I think this is just me wanting to say, like, thank you for bringing light to such a connecting, you know, a connecting, just like this connecting community that exists, you know, like it doesn't always have to be so serious and showing up genuinely and like making eye contact. Like, those are really great things. And we can make fun of ourselves doing it too.
Totally. I think that sometimes it's a necessary phase to go through where it's like you're still kind of discovering yourself and finding yourself and you're using spirituality as a vehicle to do so. And sometimes we can end up mimicking things. And then over time, we're like, that's actually not me. I remember a woman was sharing with me not too long ago. She was like, I was in Costa Rica and I met all these women who just finished the goddess retreat and they all sounded exactly the same. They're speaking really slowly, which is also a great thing to practice. And I think through the process of being immersed in things, at some point you find who you genuinely are in that, and you take what resonates and you take what doesn't.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Always just kind of finding yourself as your as your environment constantly shifts.
Mm-hmm.
And so shifting gears just a little bit, I want to talk about like the masculine and feminine just energies within the spiritual community, within like new age talk, because yeah, I mean, you embody those comedic parts within those two characters, but what are just your general thoughts on, let's start with the masculine expression.
I think it's the masculine is leadership, the masculine is cut through energy,
Mm-hmm.
the masculine is will, the masculine is I'm not going to settle for less than I can be or that I can do or that I can have or receive in this life. And it's potency.
Yeah, potency.
Mm-hmm.
The visual that I think of when you describe those things is like a rock with like its like fist on its chest, like I'm here and I'm showing up.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And so on the contrary, because specifically there's a lot of talk about like scientifically testosterone is decreasing in our population, at least especially in America.
Yeah.
And I think specifically within the spiritual community, they embody like a very masculine type of masculinity, right? And so I'm curious, like with that rock versus like the stereotypical like video games and sports and kind of like more passive numbing things. Um, so I'm curious, how would you describe like your embodiment of the feminine?
Hmm. Receptivity, grace, joy, creativity. Yeah. Sensuality.
And out of all of those qualities, both masculine and feminine, is there anything that you're like really embodying right now, or like really wanting to lean into embodying?
No.
No. So for you, is it like how would you describe your conception of that question? Does that make sense?
I understand the question completely and exactly what you mean by it. And why I answered no is I'm more concerned with being myself than being masculine or feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sometimes in the spiritual community, we can have this idea of what masculine or feminine is,
Mm-hmm.
and we can abandon ourself, which inherently contains those qualities, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, what I mean by that is the more we drop into ourself and the more we just are more of ourself, the more naturally those qualities come out. And I think from experience and from seeing in clients and people in my circle, sometimes we get so caught up in, all right, I have to be more masculine, or I have to be more feminine, or I have to be more this or that. We put this pressure on ourselves, and that pressure, as subtle as it may be, actually takes us off kilter from who we actually are, which is whatever our natural state is.
Mm. Yeah. I feel like that speaks directly to what I have been processing in this like last Scorpio season. I just like have had all these ideas in my head of like, speaking slowly, making the eye contact. Am I smiling when I want to be smiling? And like at the end of the day, it comes down to like the present moment, right? Like surrendering to who am I in this present moment. And it really doesn't have to be that complicating, like you said. It just needs
100%.
that. Yeah.
And if you notice you're in a lot of complication, you're probably not in truth, because the truth isn't complicated. The
Mm-hmm.
truth is really simple. It's yes, it's no, it's I love you, it's I miss you, it's I want to do this, I don't want to do that. And a friend of mine, and he's been a mentor too, he had an acting coach back in the day, and his acting coach said something that really, really resonates with me. And his acting coach told him, the truth of the moment will always be more interesting than any story you could ever create.
Mm-hmm.
And how that relates to what you're saying is, instead of trying, right, the keyword being trying to be more masculine or more feminine,
Mm-hmm.
if you're just honest about your truth in every moment as best you can, that will reap more benefits. And this has nothing to do with, I think it's a great idea for some people to go like, all right, I'm going to go to a masculine and feminine. Like I've gone to those things. I'm going to practice presence. I'm going to practice breath work. I'm going to practice, sensuality. I think all of those are components that are super powerful in enhancing and helping you receive more of who you actually are. But when it becomes dogmatic, I think that's when it becomes problematic.
Yes, I love that. Receiving more of who you actually are. Yeah. Um, Adolfo from the Brilliance Education Center, he like leads these heart talks in Bali in Ubud. And he said something that really stuck with me. He said, the mind will always make up reasons, like those stories, but the heart just knows.
100%.
And so then I feel like people have to get clear on, how do I listen to my heart? Like it just knows. I can like just hear some listeners saying like, what do you mean it just knows? I'm confused all the damn time. So how would you say like your journey with intuition is?
I had a mentor of mine back in the day, and he said something to me. He said, trust your first thought.
Mm.
So I started playing around with that idea of trusting my first thought. And whether it would be something as stupid as like go to the grocery store and buy fucking almond milk and it's 9 o'clock at night, I'd go to the, or something as big as take a flight with $60 to your name to another part of the world and trust me, and everything in between. And in that, what I've learned, how I relate to intuition is intuition, I believe, is like God speaking to you, universe speaking to you, Buddha, whatever you want to believe in. And I don't believe that God, universal energy, whatever you want to call it, would whisper something to you to fuck your life up. Right. So it's been a journey of just trusting each thought, each impulse, each vision I get and following through on it as best I can. I'm not perfect, but the evidence that I've received, and I have fucking super crazy stories, but the evidence that I've received from trusting myself and seeing that every single time it's safe. It's a great quote by Terrence Mckenna, and he says, this is how magic is done. You jump into the abyss and you realize that it's a bed of feathers.
Mm.
And the ego wants to create every kind of story to stay in its own self-preservation mode, whether that be with money, whether that be with moving, whether that be with relationships. But every single time I've made that fucking jump, I have been more supported and received more than I could have ever dreamed of. Which now it's just like, there's levels to it, but I know that my intuition will never fail me from trusting it. And it will only ever always give me more of what I want. And I know that the only way to actually receive what I want is to follow my intuition. So then knowing that, it becomes almost obsolete to do anything else.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think like it kind of reminds me of like the adrenaline of like, oh, I did it and like it was hard and I embraced it. And like all the chemical changes in my body of like fear, but then I did it, confidence,
Mm-hmm.
exaltation, and then continuing riding that wave. Um, I experienced a lot of this. I think like just entering the spiritual community in general. I remember I paid for like a business mentorship, and I was like, one of the things that I'm manifesting is soul tribe. Like, I have been asking for this my whole life, never really clicked with anyone, especially not in these new spiritual parts of myself. And I told her that there was a drum circle, but I was like a little nervous about going by myself. And she's like, girl, like, what the fuck? There is a clear invitation for you right there. Like, you have to go. And
Mm-hmm.
so I went to that. And then I ended up like booking this trip to Bali and like having all these crazy experiences of like psychic vision experiences that I hadn't had in a while because I was taking risks and like showing up.
Yep.
And, like there was this one specific back-to-back instance that like I could not make up this shit. I was going to let's see. Well, it started with like this crazy sound journey that I had, and I was having a day where like I just needed to press pause. Like I was writing this like self-development program, and I was on like the pillar of mental health. And I was like, oh, I'll just have them work through all of their traumas and we'll get done in 15 minutes, like no problem. And Spirit was like, slow down, girl. Like, no one's doing that in 15 minutes. And so this vinyasa class that I signed up for, like, canceled. It's got switched to a gentle class. I went to that heart talk, and like the theme of it was like gentility. And so I'm like, okay, I'm getting a message about gentility. And then I go to like this breathwork class and I see this symbol, like this, like I've never had like a geometric symbol just come in a vision before alone. And so it's like this triangle, circle, triangle. And then I go to this improv class, which was like on a whim, like not something that I would do, traveling alone in a country. I was like, fuck it, I'll act for a little bit. And so I see this guy's shirt that has like the exact symbol that I just thought of on it. And it said, I believe in the good things coming. And I was like, shut the fuck up. Like, what's coming? And so yeah, like long story short, that ended up being a song. That song played in like two of my yoga classes, like my very last yoga class there. And then the day after I got back to Seattle, I meet this guy who ends up introducing me to like a lot of the spiritual community that I'm tight with now. And he has this symbol like tattooed right on his forearm, like exactly
Of
how I saw it.
course.
And so like I tell this story a lot, honestly, because it was just like a really cool string of events. And every time they're like, all I hear is that you followed the breadcrumbs. Like you went to the improv class, you went to the drum circle, you went to all these things. And like it all started with me going to that drum circle in the beginning. That gave me the idea to go to Bali. And it really was just like you just got to get uncomfortable once and then listen to the intuition from there.
100%. 100% well said.
So I know you said that you had some crazy stories with, was it with your intuition as well?
Oh, many, yeah.
Yeah. What's something that like that feels alive if you'd like to share any?
I could share one. This one is pretty wild. But so 2017, I had a girlfriend who I met in LA, but she lived in Germany. And I was planning on visiting her. This was it 2018? I think it was 2018. I was planning on visiting her in 2018, February, later in the month. And she's like a German double Virgo. So, she's a planning strategic woman.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in my little desk chair and I had this intuitive hit. And the intuitive hit was look at flights from Los Angeles to Berlin right now. And I looked at flights and I found a one-way ticket. This was February 2nd. I looked it up. I looked up flights. And there was a flight leaving February 4th, which is 2 days. So I'd have to pack up all my shit. And it was me, one backpack. I ended up booking this flight on the only money basically I had was a $300 credit card at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So 180 of it just went
Mm-hmm.
to this flight. I have no fucking clue where my next paycheck's coming from. And I just trusted. The next day, I had a client sign up, which was just like, okay, I hear you, God. And I take this flight. I go all the way to Germany, and I'm surprising her too, which is great. Like, how to get a German double Virgo out of their comfort zone is you surprise them in a fucking other country. And so I go to surprise her, and flashback 2 weeks before I left LA, I gave a session to someone for free that lived in Berlin, Germany. That woman ended up signing up to do a VIP day with me in Germany. So all of these things are starting to conspire. One of the things that I've gained out of this as kind of an abundance principle is that sometimes the most financially illogical thing is actually the most abundant thing, because I don't know if I would have made as much money as I had I not actually acted on my intuition when I didn't quote unquote have the means, right? Which is an illusion anyways. Mm-hmm. And next thing I know, I'm in Germany and I spent a month in Germany. And this is where the story gets really fucking weird. About 6 months before I went to Germany, I had a medium reading with someone. And this medium told me I was going to have a powerful activation in England. And I was like, I've never heard that before. So, I decide, all right, cool. My ex is busy for the month of March. So I'm like, cool, I'm going to take a month and go to London by myself. Never been to London, never spent much time in Europe. And by the end of that month in Germany, I had basically blew through all of my money. So I had a flight, 2 nights to stay with a friend, and everything else was Kyle was going to figure this shit out. And I had a client who was supposed to pay me the day my flight was leaving, but I just had a feeling she was going to flake on her payment. And she did. And I felt this anger and this frustration bubble up. So I decided right before I got on my flight, something was like, Kyle, you need to do a live stream right now on Facebook and just create content. So I created a video, and then the video ended and something was like, Kyle, click to see who liked your video. I was like, okay. I see one specific person who owns a wine company in California who I met once. Super cool dude. And someone was like, click on his profile. I click on his profile. His whole team is in London, exactly where I'm going. And he's originally from California. So next thing I know, I'm just hitting him up following the thread of synchronicity. He's like, dude, we're going to go out to dinner. I'm going to take you out for a few nights here in London. So I'm like, all right, cool. Get to London. I'm like writing, I exude luxury and abundance with every step and breath I take in my little journal, like low key freaking out on the flight. And I get to London. I spend whatever it was, $20, which was like 1/4 of my net worth at the time, to get on a fucking bus to the middle of London. And oh, are you frozen?
Oh, no, I'm here. Do you see me? Hello.
Yep, I see you now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
I was like, are you frozen or just extremely present?
No, I'm
Um, so I get on this flight and yeah, I'm writing all of these things. I get to London and I'm messaging with him back and forth. And I'm like, we're talking about going to dinner. And one of the things that he messages me, I don't know what pulled him to say this, but he just goes, "Do you need help?" And I felt my like masculine pride and ego come up. And I was like, and mind you, I met this man once.
mhm.
And I was like, yeah, I do need help. And he goes, cool, meet me at my hotel in Chelsea in London. And I'm going to give you £500, which at the time was like $750 cash.
Wow.
I'll never forget being in the elevator. He has this fucking trench coat on, just discreetly hands me £500. And this is my first day in this city, where I started out freaking out about money.
Mhm.
So all of that is happening. Just the crazy, like I'm getting like a random payment from a mentor who's just like, keep your head up, keep your heart open, doesn't know anything that I'm going through. And that month, I actually made the most money I'd ever made in my business that month.
Mhm.
And another story, I'm on the phone with my ex, who was my girlfriend at the time, and we were going to go to Bali the month after London. And I had almost all the money, but not all of it. And she's like, "Do you want to book our tickets for Bali on Thursday?" And I think it was Monday. We were on FaceTime.
Mhm.
And something in me during that call was like, because all the little scarcity stuff was coming up, I was feeling the uncertainty, but something was like, Kyle, just make a fucking decision. I was like, yep, we're going to book our ticket on Thursday.
Mhm.
I swear to God, I hang up the phone. I check my Facebook Messenger and I get 4 voice messages from a guy who was in one of my free programs back in the day. And he goes, dude, I just had a medium reading. And the medium told me that there's a guy named Kyle who's going to help me with emotional stuff. That Thursday, he signs up and pays to be my client. All of these things are happening and it's so trippy. And to put a little fucking bow on this, the medium who gave me a medium reading lived in Las Vegas, but just so happened to be in England at the exact same time as me for mediumship training. And her and I got lunch. And after that fucking experience, I learned on the deepest level, you will never lose by trusting your heart. You will never lose by trusting your intuition. It became such an embodied experience of, if you trust yourself, everything works out.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, and everything in that story, just like how connected it was throughout the world, right? Like the guy on Facebook talking to the medium, talking to you. I
Yeah.
think that was my favorite part because it just felt, and then the giving, like the $750, it just feels like all of these timelines, are like collapsing into the one timeline because you chose to put your heart into it.
100%. It's funny, just to add one more little detail. My first few nights in London, I'm going out to like the fanciest fucking restaurants in London.
Mhm.
And I recollected what I was scribbling down in my little notebook, like I exude luxury and abundance with every step. And I'm like, wow, I'm like living this experience that I literally was just jotting down on paper. So
Mhm.
yeah, it was a trip.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Even the affirmation that you wrote when you were like maybe feeling frantic, you could even feel that embodiment later.
Yeah, 100%.
Hmm. And so I'd love to continue the conversation about abundance
Yeah.
because I feel like I am like, for my journey with like money right now, I'm always thinking about, all right, how hard does my masculine need to work? How many clients do I need to see? How many hours do I need to put in to work today so that my feminine can flow in our desires and I can say yes to all the things that my heart wants. And I find myself getting into a super fun amount of debt like all the time. I'll like do all this money work. I like manifested like thousands of dollars and like within weeks it was like it's just like such a roller coaster it feels like. And I hear a lot of people like within this community talking about like saying yes to their heart's desires, but at what point do we need to say no to our heart's desires? Like how do you draw that fine line? Or is it as simple as listen to your intuition every step of the way?
Yeah. I think for me personally, trusting your intuition will never lead you astray. And I think it doesn't have to be polarized, right? So it doesn't need to be like the feminine serves the masculine serves the feminine. They're one, they're one. And the
Mm,
more you unionize that, the more you're the abundance of yourself.
mm,
And my whole thing around abundance is being the abundance of yourself. So instead of being like, okay, why isn't money flowing in? Or it's like the question I like to ask myself or ask clients is, where are you not being yourself? Where are
mm,
you not fully expressing yourself? And what I find truly is that we'll never actually find the stability that we're looking for from a certain number in our account.
mhm,
Because what's the presupposition of that, right? That if the money's taken away, then I feel unstable, which means that my stability is based upon money. And I find that the more that we trust our spirit, we trust our intuition, and the more that we're just fucking ourselves, the more we're just not fucking ourselves, but the more that we are ourselves. But you can fuck yourself too if that's part of it. And the more we choose to just be all of us, the more money reflects that, right? But if we're withholding, as an example, if we're withholding parts of ourselves, but then we use strategy to try and create abundance while we're still withholding part of ourselves, now we're going to create burnout because there's an inherent tension between who we are and what we're trying to do. Does that make sense?
mhm. Yeah.
So, so in that, it's where can I be more myself? Where can I play more? Where can I be more lighthearted? Where can I express myself? What aspects of myself are wanting to be expressed and wanting to uh, be seen that I'm not allowing to be seen? And the more that I can dive into that, whether that's sexuality, whether that's leadership, whether that's joy and play, whether that is sadness or grief, the more you allow all of yourself to be welcome, the more you can allow money to be welcome because you're saying it's okay for you to be you and you're accepting that.
Mhm,
And being the abundance of yourself to me is correlated with abundance in the terms of finances.
mhm. Yeah. And so what I hear within that is the true definition of abundance is the exalted expression of your authentic self.
100%. Because that's really what you want anyways on a deeper level.
Hmm. Yeah. And it's such a beautiful reminder that like we are all put on like no matter what you believe, right? Like we can all kind of like jive with the idea that we were all put on this earth like as our unique selves with unique desires, unique traumas, unique inhibitions, unique paths, unique flights, even, like we all got different journeys and it's like so purposeful. And tying it back to what we said in the beginning, how willing are you to take that vulnerable leap to really ignite that fire of you inside of you?
100%. The more that you can the more that you can be you and just leave all your cards on the table,
Mhm.
like that's it.
Yeah.
And I believe you don't have to sacrifice yourself to get money. Like it's not like, oh, the masculine has to do all this work so then I can relax. It's like, what if I combined and unified both of those? Where is the place where I can be relaxed and intense? Where's
Mm-hmm.
the place where I can be lit but still in my being?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not, and this is where we go into extreme polarities. There's people who are just like, I'm just being all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But even that isn't true. And what I mean by that is, and this is an extreme example, someone who's like, I'm always just being and flowing with the moment. That person isn't being because there's a part of their being that they're not embodying.
Mm-hmm.
could be their fire, their leadership, their expression, their like no bullshit. And there could be the other person who's like, I need to do, create, create, create. And
Mhm.
they're fucking burnt out. And they come to me or you for a session, and it's like, what's the harmony point? And how I found the harmony point for myself, and still something that I refine, is just slowing down enough to be in tune with what you need in every moment. Do I need to express right now? I've had times where like I'll just chill for the whole fucking day, and then I'm like, get an intuitive hit to do a live stream or message someone, and I made a bunch of money.
Mhm.
And had I just been slaving away and working and grinding when it wasn't in alignment for me, I might not have even have made money so effortlessly.
Mm.
I can recall a time in my life when I was living in New York, and this was my second month renting this place. This was the most expensive place I'd ever rented. So it was stretching me. And I remember the night before my rent was due, I had about $8 in my account. And I was like, I could probably buy this fucking guy a bagel. And I got in a freak out mode for a second. I was like, all right, let me do this. And I was like, okay, let me slow down. I had these tarot cards in my house, and I pulled one. And the card the ego never wants to receive when you need to make money and make shit happen quickly. The card I pulled was nothingness. And I was like, all right. So I slowed down. I put some music on. I just laid flat and I let go of needing to do anything, needing to get anywhere. And during me laying down, I had an intuitive hit to reach out to a client of mine to do a VIP day with me. And we had a session consequently the next day. So I messaged her. She's like, cool, let's talk about it on the call. She signed up to do a VIP day with me. And she paid the exact to the dollar amount of what my rent was.
Wow.
And what I learned in that, and this is where you can use some of the masculine energy discipline, if you will, to discipline the the out of alignment behaviors. So if you feel yourself wanting to be frantic and create, and I need to make this post and do this, when it doesn't feel true, it's using that leadership to go, no, you don't. Sit the fuck down.
Mm.
Slow down. And in that, now you're receiving more of yourself, which gives rise to greater insights and a greater vantage point where you can see things. And then from that space, oh, wow, now I'm creating a lot more powerfully and a lot more effortlessly.
Mm. Yeah, because what I hear in that is it's no longer this shadow programmed version of this overworked capitalistic masculine doing things out of scarcity, but
Yeah.
instead it's that rock with his fist on his chest. And he's like, yo, like, sit down. You can slow down. And it's like from that leadership.
Yeah. It's the masculine energy also having that higher vision or whatever you want to call it to go, no, you shouldn't be working right now,
Mm-hmm.
which actually is masculine.
Mm-hmm. Because it leads.
Right. If a woman's with a man, right, and they're in a relationship, and the man is witnessing his woman go, I need to do this and do that and do that. What does she want in that moment? Does she want the guy to be like, yeah, you do need to do this and do, or does she want him to be like, hey, slow down,
Yeah.
you know, give her a hug, come back. Now all of a sudden her being softens, which is exactly what we can do inside of ourselves in those moments when we feel our own frazzledness or franticness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. Hmm. And so, just like from this space now, checking in maybe with intuition, with your heart, what message would you like to share?
Just love all of you, love all of your expression. Let yourself off the leash,
Mm.
let yourself be. Take a break if you need from all the concepts and things that you ingest all the time, and just see who you are and what you want to authentically and genuinely do when those aren't present, and stop making yourself wrong for wanting what you want,
Mm.
because everything that you truly on a soul level want serves a lot more than just you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, love that. And it takes tuning in and slowing down to listen and know.
100%.
I always talk about like life, kind of like these like fucked up stairs. Like we have like our stair, like, you know, we're learning things, we're growing. We did the self development, we went to the master class, and then we're cruising. Ah, awesome. I just got that $750 manifested. And then this is where it's fucked up. And there's like a little hole in the step. And it's like, oh, fuck. Like I just kind of fell down or I have to take a step back. My girlfriend broke up with me. I got fraud, you know, whatever. And like we go through these things just to remember the things that we need to get to the next step. And then we cruise again, we get fucked up, we learn the bigger things, and we're always on that higher and higher stair. And I think it's so important to just remind us that as we get to these bigger challenges and we get these, you know, we get into these greater flow states, it doesn't need to get so complicating. Just always remembering to take that time to tune in, because no matter how many voices or programs are being shot into you, what matters is already inside of you, always. All you have to do is just align, tune in, and it's there.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes you have to be fucking fierce. Like you have to be fierce with your own programs and things that come up and be like, stop. Or like just stomp your feet on the ground or move and get into your fucking body and your primal animal and be like, I know what the fuck to do.
Yeah.
Or I got this. I'm gonna figure this shit out. And from that space, from that clarity of your being, from that fucking passionate center where you're just like, no, this isn't gonna happen. Or like, I'm not dealing with this how I've been dealing with this. It takes one small but powerful fucking decision to clear out all the excess noise. And that is, to me, the masculine energy penetrating our own feminine chaos.
Mm.
Right? So we can either get lost in our own chaos or we can go, okay, no, this is fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
This isn't the truth. And we can choose to stop playing in it and swimming in waters that are murky, swimming in waters that aren't in truth, that aren't actually fruitful, and go, I am done being this version of me who gets off on this, who plays in it. Because I know the truth and this isn't the truth. And if more people, and this is a skill, this is a practice, if more people are willing to just speak the fucking truth, like the world will transform. Because so many people, we stay in illusions and then we want to manifest things that are out of the illusion. Well, she's trying to stay in the illusion, right? So a good example of that might be, you know, I want to be all of my, I want to make so much money and do all of these things, but I'm also not being myself. And it's like I want both at the same time. You have to fucking pick one.
Yeah.
And what I know from experience is that if you pick the latter and you pick you every single time, you will get more than whatever your illusion wanted to preserve anyways.
Yes.
Yeah.
If not this, then better.
For you know, take relationships as an example. I see so many people fucking bullshit themselves in relationships. Yeah, it's all good. I'm like, you're not happy. You know, I had a friend of mine, she booked a session with me, and it depends on the person and the session and how direct I am. But you know, she's a homie of mine, and she's a really like young, successful chef. And I saw her get into a relationship a while back. She told me, I didn't really see much of it, but as soon as she told me, I was like, and we get into our session. I do like psychic transformational session, so I combine transformation with like a psychic reading almost. And right as the session started, she wanted to talk about business and all these things, and all I'm hearing the whole fucking time, I was like, relationship, relationship, relationship. I was like, tell me a little bit about your relationship. What's going on over there if you want to share? It's your time. But if you feel comfortable and called to share, tell me what's going on. She's like, well, we've been going back and forth. We broke up like 4 times. And what I saw in that moment was how hard she was trying to preserve that illusion. She wanted to, and all of these things, because it's all connected, all the things that were showing up in her business were showing up in her relationship, that same way of being. What I love to work on is what's the domino that's going to knock down all the other dominoes? Meaning, what's the thing that you can embody that's going to take care of pretty much everything?
Yeah.
And leadership and fierceness was a big one. And she was so diluted and not potent because she wasn't choosing to speak her truth and end this relationship when she knew in her fucking heart and soul it wasn't right. All these weird things were happening with money. All these weird things were happening with business. And I could feel it in my heart and soul. I was like, if you take this leap and you end this relationship, I guarantee you every fucking thing you want will pop off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that Eminem song, you only got one shot. And we have multiple shots. But to speak to that energy of like, stop staying in places where you don't belong and expecting yourself to get what you actually want.
Mm-hmm.
And my invitation is, if you are going to stay in an illusion, at least be honest and compassionate.
Mm-hmm.
And as best you can, don't be in delusion. Go, okay, I'm terrified to leave this relationship that I know is out of alignment, but I'm going to stay. That's a lot better to me than going, no, this person's awesome. I love them so much. We're soulmates. And every day you're experiencing stress, anxiety, and your body is screaming at you to let it go.
Mm. Yeah. Going back to that like acceptance. It starts with fully seeing what is and accepting it.
Yeah. I had people reach out to me and they're like, what do you think about twin flames? And like, I used to get really bought into that concept, but I'd rather have a healthy fucking relationship than
Yeah.
some distorted spiritual concept people conjure up. Not saying that twin flames aren't real, but a lot of people hijack them and then they use them to justify out of alignment relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if you're experiencing stress and anxiety and like terror every fucking day,
Mm-hmm.
would you be cool if like you didn't date your twin flame and maybe you just dated someone that was a bit more just stable and healthy and you feel connected to?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, on that topic of speaking and embody, accepting what is, speaking and embodying that truth, kind of lighting it up for other people. Being in Seattle, I think about like the mycelium network of mushrooms a lot. Are you familiar with like the undergrounding of that network?
No.
So essentially, there's like hella tree roots underground, right? There's like, we got this tree, we got this tree. All the trees in the forest have these roots. And just like we have everything inside of us, they, have all the nutrients they need and they exchange it with one another. Like they do that through the soil. But the roots connect to one another under there because of little mushrooms. Like you can have like a couple mushrooms, like one mushroom in the forest, and it'll connect like tree Steve over with like tree Phil, like a mile apart. I don't know if it's actually a mile, but like that's how it functions.
Cool.
And so I like to think about like we are the trees and the mushrooms, right? Like we have everything inside of us, like the tree, and we're just exchanging our very unique truths to light up other people's truths.
Yeah.
And we are also the mushroom because when we show up in our full expression, we like give every other tree, every other person that green light around us. That's like, yo, I look fucking sick doing this. It feels real good. Like, how about you? You know?
Yeah. Well said.
Thank you. Yeah, I always feel like that when I'm like in the forest and I'm hugging a tree. And like I used to be like so silly. People would walk by and I would like pretend to like look through my purse for something, like I wasn't just hugging this tree. and then and then I was just like, what if I didn't hide who I was and I just kept hugging this tree? And then I saw this little girl like with her mom and like she went and hugged a tree. And I was like, oh, yeah, I did that.
And that really to me speaks to the power of what ripples we actually create from owning who the fuck we actually are.
Mm,
I remember back in the day when I was afraid to call myself a psychic and all these things, even though that's what I fucking was. I tell people like, oh, I'm like a life coach, or because I was so afraid to be perceived as woo woo. But
yeah.
the thing that I know now is we can't make magic normal until we talk about it like it's normal.
Yeah.
And if we're and that world is actually a lot more real than a lot of the shit that is actually quote unquote real in this world.
Mhm.
And it's like when we own who we are and we speak our truth and we speak what's real for us, we give people the authentic coordinates to find us so that they can receive from us.
Ooh.
Right. But if we're always a couple degrees off or diluting it a little bit here, your people will miss you a little bit. And
Mhm.
there are people on their fucking hands and knees right now to meet someone like you, to meet someone like me, to meet someone like whoever is listening. If we are so daring enough to be all of ourselves, we will literally be the answer to so many people's prayers that are praying to meet someone exactly like us. And I want to meet those people too. So I don't want to stay there.
Yeah. I wonder if we can, like, I feel like I'm called to just like lead like a 15-second energetic hug, like taking a deep breath. And if everyone listening could just think about their heart, their light, and the place where we point when we say me, and this light that's inevitably inside of us connecting to the light of everyone else. Thinking about your heart and this light attached to all the lights of the people whose lives you're meant to transform. And I wonder if while we're all in this space together, we can just like take our arms out and give each other a big ass hug. Because if you're here and you're listening to this, we were meant to be here together. So I love you. I love you. I love you.
Love you, beautiful people.
Love you, beautiful people. I feel like an appropriate way, I'll ask if you have anything else that you want to say, but I just want to end with, you are me and I am you. And a friend of mine in Miami would say, everything is just consciousness getting to know itself. And so let it be known. Be that mushroom, be that tree, and show up. So that's what I got for wrapping up. Is there anything else that you'd like to just fill in this container?
Um, Made me laugh because I just did a video on containers
Yeah,
yesterday.
I love being.
Um, no, just whoever is listening to this, I love you. I think you are amazing. You have a light inside you that's wanting to be expressed. And don't give up. You might be way closer than you think to receiving what you truly are here for. And or you keep choosing yourself, even when it's hard, even when it's gritty, you will receive everything beyond your wildest fucking dreams.
Love that so much. Thank you so much for all of your nuggets and lights, and not just nuggets. Thank you for the whole roasted chicken of wisdom.
Well, you're welcome. I've been preparing for a little bit.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, listeners, and peace out. Shakti Maitri, where we ignite the divine feminine with loving kindness.